What's up, Conkers? Hope everybody is having a fantastic day today. Now, I've got a video for you here today on the passive skill tree in Path of Exile 2. And if you're a beginner to Path of Exile 2, this is kind of cover the basics of the passive skill tree. It's really quite a vast passive skill tree. You get one skill point every time you level up. And so a lot of the time it's really hard for people to know like what passive skills should you get, what shouldn't you get for what builds, and it's all really confusing for new players. So we're going to get into all that here so that your decision making on your passive skill tree is much better than it would be before you watch this video. So if you watch this video and you enjoy it, please drop a like, and if you learned something, subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching as always. When first discussing the passive skill tree for beginners in Path of Exile 2, there are really some basics to cover, and then we'll get to nodes, search feature, and weapon specializations. And we'll talk about specifically what nodes or level ups that you want to choose in the passive skill tree. Now, the basics are each time you level up, you get a passive skill point. And so every time you level up, there'll be a little icon in the bottom left of your screen, but you can also click the hotkey P, and that'll pull up your passive skill tree, and then you can use a skill point. Now, you can spend a skill point anywhere in the passive skill tree as long as it's either connected to your starting point or to an already unlocked skill. So you can't, for instance, jump all around the map if you haven't already unlocked prior skills. So the passive skill tree, it really is a tree in sense that all of your skills are connected to one another. So you always have to get the skills. If you're buying a skill point with a level up passive skill point, it has to be connected to a prior unlocked skill. Now, there are some passive skills that just grant attributes, and there are some passive skills that grant stats or different upgrades. So if you're getting a passive skill that grants an attribute, you can actually choose between whether it's going to grant you strength, dexterity, or intelligence. And usually you want to make that decision based off the class you're using or the types of weapons and gems you're using. Because normally, the type of weapon, like if you're using a staff and it costs intelligence to use that, like it has an intelligence requirement to use the staff, you're going to need enough intelligence from your passive skill tree to continue using that staff as you climb higher in level. So the really unique and cool thing about the passive skill tree is you're not forced to explore in any specific direction. Like you can make whatever build you could possibly fathom, anything you want to screw around with, anything you want to try, or you can do a more meta build. Like the world is yours as far as the passive skill tree goes. You can branch out to any area on the passive skill tree. The only thing that you're forced into is where you start on the passive skill tree. So there are, based on your class, specific areas on the passive skill tree that you will basically be your starting point, and then you can branch out anywhere from there. So the passive skill tree is really unique in that way in Path of Exile compared to other games, because regardless of the class that you start with, you can branch out anywhere on the passive skill tree. So the second really important thing to talk about are nodes. Now, nodes are the term for basically the circles or the skills within the passive skill tree, and there's three different types of nodes. So there's small passive skills, there's notable passives, and then there are keystones. So small passive skills are just the smallest circles / nodes. Notable passives are medium sized, keystones are the giant circles or nodes. Now, the small passive skills, they're usually, you want to kind of think about them more as connectors. You're not really trying to go around and grab as many small passive skills as possible. You're really trying to get to the notable passives, the mediums, and then sometimes the keystones, the big nodes. So you're really just trying to use the small passive skills as branches to get to the different notable passives or keystones that you want to get to. Those are kind of your big upgrades, right? So small passive skills normally have minor bonuses or small increases in stats or attributes. So they're not big buffs to your character. Now, notable passives are medium-sized nodes, so they're a bit bigger. They grant greater bonuses, and they're usually connected to from like many different routes. Not always, some are dead ends, but normally connected to many different routes. But that's kind of what you want to aim for. Like, you want to find notable passives. So, for instance, if you're playing Druid and you're shapeshifting a lot, you want to find some notable passives for shapeshifting, like damage, armor, anything that you're going for as far as shapeshifting. If you're playing Witch, you want to find notable passives for minions. If you're playing Ranger, you want to find notable passives for projectile attack damage or physical attack damage, things like that. Just depends on your build. If you're playing a tank, you're trying to find notable passives for armor, resistances, HP, strength, and I'll give some examples of some passive skill trees later. And then keystones are the big nodes. So keystones can sometimes not even be good. It really depends on your build. Like keystones can range from really bad for your build to extremely powerful for your build. So they're unique and powerful passive skills in Path of Exile 2. So they'll have a significant impact to your character's fighting style, whether that be good or bad, just depends on the build that you're creating. So that's kind of the quick rundown of these passive skills and the passive skill tree. And the other thing you can take a look at in the passive skill tree is basically it's so giant, sometimes it's kind of hard to find what you're looking for. And so, if I'm playing Druid, I'll type in, there's a search bar that you can use, I'll type in shapeshifting. And I want to find all of the notable passives that have to deal with shapeshifting, so I know where I need to branch out to and kind of lock into those, right? So I think the in-game skill search feature is super useful for that and gives you an idea of where you need to go. You could spend forever looking at the tree trying to plot out where you're going to go otherwise. So I wanted to give you guys some examples because I think even with some base tips, it's always helpful to kind of see examples and how I don't watch like a bunch of different tutorials and all this stuff myself of the meta, but even without that, when you've played the game, you can still make some pretty strong builds, right? So the builds I make, they're always good just because I follow some basic rules, which I always try to get. As we talked about, I always try to get notable passives, right? So I'm trying to get as little of the small passive skills and as many of the notable passives as possible. And normally what I do, it depends on the build, of course, but normally Act 1's a bit easier. So Act 1, I get, a lot of DPS. And then Act 2, I begin mixing in some armor or energy shield or evasion, whichever defenses I'm going for, some resistances. So, for example, in this build, there's these starting points, as we talked about, around the passive skill tree, and Druid started here. And so there's normally two branches that start off, and there is, basically the defensive path, armor and energy shield, or there's a DPS path, spell and attack damage. So I went for the DPS path, and normally the farther you go out from the very beginning, this isn't always true, but normally the farther you go out, the more frequent you'll find these notable passives, and the better that they are. And so I went spell and attack damage for the most part in Act 1, tried to basically get to my first notable passive as soon as possible. Quickly jumped to the next one here. I did not get the armor and energy shield until Act 2 here, so I actually skipped these and basically kept going down the skill tree and picking up really strong notable passives. So I went through my first little area with basically lots of DPS, and then my first little area where I could get two notables again, both DPS, And I like the connectors I like using are attributes, because a lot of the time I need attributes for my weapons or skill gems, whether that be strength, intelligence, dexterity. Like, I need those attributes to use my weapons and skill gems, and you can always see that on a weapon or skill gem. So I kind of go down the main path and pick up my attributes, and then notables that I see that I really want, I'll go ahead and pick up, right? And so I want to get things that are for my build. Like, this build was a shape-shifting bear, where I wanted a lot of DPS and enough armor to stay alive. So, like, my notables here: increase damage, increase attributes, increase damage again, increase attack speed, increase damage, increase rage and damage. And we keep going down this way. I got a jewel socket, and I didn't specifically cover this in the basics, actually, but you'll pick up jewels as you farm different areas. And if we find an empty one, see, there's actually an empty jewel socket. So you actually pick up jewels as you farm different areas, and you can upgrade these, and you can actually socket them in here. So you can actually, it's kind of like an interchangeable passive skill. And so then I came all the way to the end, because basically what I identified was at the end of this tree, you know, if I went all the way out, these were some notable passives I really wanted that were going to be really strong, right? And so I skipped some of the things that were actually a bit closer at home, so I go all the way out and get these notable passives. So I'm getting a lot of damage here and big armor increase, because I'm going to be shapeshifted, right? So, for instance, instead of being at home and getting like 3 of these, which would increase my armor by, 36%, I just went all the way out here and I got a 40% increase while I'm shapeshifted, plus some other bonuses, and a big damage increase out here as well. And then once I hit Act 2, I needed a little more armor, and so I grabbed 2 of the armor notable passives at home. Once I got some more armor and energy shield and was feeling good, about staying alive. Like, if you're having a really hard time staying alive, you can always get more defenses. You can always get more notable passives for defenses. So you kind of have to play it by ear. Like, if you're not doing enough damage, crank up some more DPS. If you just can't stay alive, get some more defenses, notable passives. Then I came down here, got more DPS, kept going down the tree because there were some interesting passive skills I wanted down here, like Prism Guard, Battle Fever, and I'm going to keep going down this tree. So I've almost done a triangle here, and you could say, well, why don't you just go, from the other direction? Well, there wasn't really anything in this area that I wanted, right? Like, there was nothing I was going to branch off to that I actually wanted right here. So that's why I didn't branch through this area. And the attributes are useful for your weapons and gems, but you don't want to overdo them. Like, they're not very good in and of themselves. So you definitely don't want to overdo that. And that's kind of an example of what the build for my druid looks like. And so if you have any comments, questions, concerns about that, let me know what you guys think, if that was helpful. So overall, that's kind of the quick and dirty of the passive skill tree for the beginners out there looking to get into Path of Exile. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. If you guys enjoyed that, please drop a like on the video. It would help the video gain traction. Subscribe to the channel if you learned something. And thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you guys in the next video.